got a great film to play, you know.
Hello? Have you ever snogged a lady?
We had a technical problem.
Are we on?
Yeah, we're on there.
Can I swear? Shit!
Welcome to Crunch and Roll. I'm John, and I've had many nicknames over the years. Of course, Foxy, the Fox to some. I think my personal favourite has to be the Rod by a dear listener, whilst I was doing the breakfast show on BRB. Now, my guest in this episode, however, has one at nicknames. It's Red Hot Emma Scott, although she was also known to some, including Stephanie Hurst and Dave Grohl, as the Wench. I'd never spoken to Emma before we hit record, but let me tell you, she's got some amazing stories, like her unusual route into radio, her near miss with Radio 1 and how it was basically Simon Mayo's fault that she didn't get the gig, and also calling her PD and also future Crunch and Roll guest the worst swear word. That didn't work out well. Now, this is one of the funniest and most honest chats we've had on the podcast so far. So, sit back, relax, enjoy all the adult themed stories and plenty of profanity. Let's crunch and roll.
Oh yeah.
Emma Scott, how are you?
I'm all right, thank you. It's all a bit strange doing this, but thanks for having me on, John, and Simon as well, who's beautiful in the background. Yeah, it's very strange to be on the other side, which I'm sure a lot of people say, the other side of the being asked things. Ugh.
She's red hot. It's Emma Scott. Which I know you and I have just met, and it makes me sound like I'm a pervert, but that is something I read this week as the announcement at the time of recording was made that you're going to be doing some shows on a station in Derbyshire. And there were many very lovely comments about you, Emma, one of which said, she's red hot, it's Emma Scott.
Very nice. It rhymes. I mean, that's a good name to have. And if you were talking to Hursty, she might have said that I was a wench. Because actually she created the whole Emma Scott is a wench. And that carried on with me for years and years. And I remember Dave Grohl from the Foo Fighters remembers me as Emma Scott, the wench. And when I met him at the Kerrang Awards, I chased him. I said, hey, Dave. And he turns around and he went, I said, it's me, the wench. He went, hey, you're the wench. So I quite like the whole Red Hot Emma Scott thing because it's hilarious. Yeah, because I'm not really lukewarm. Doesn't rhyme. Tepid, no. And the wench thing, I don't mind calling myself a wench. It's a bit of fun. It's radio fun, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes, great, mate.
That's what it is.
We were just talking before we hit record that you and I did work together very briefly, but never met. And we'll get on to the mighty Kerrang in just a bit. But I don't know anything about you, Emma. Where are you from? Where are you from originally?
I'm from Cambridgeshire, a place called St Neots, which Caroline Martin, of course, is from Cambridgeshire. Yeah. Or she might be from Cambridge because she's quite posh. But yeah, I'm St Neots in Cambridgeshire, in East Anglia.
And was the dream to be on, I mean, what was the station in Cambridge? I can't remember now, blimey.
Well, we didn't really have one at that point. It was at 96.9 Chiltern Radio in Bedford. Right. And the dream was to be on Chiltern Radio, yes.
Right. So how did you get? I mean, did you start at Chiltern? Did you make it?
That is correct. I blagged my way in when I was 16, and I was a YTS girl. Do you remember the youth training schemes?
Wow.
The government training scheme, and I didn't really know at that age. You know, they ask you to decide what you want to do with the rest of your life when you're 13, 14, 15. You're like, I don't know. But I did think that I wanted to be a police lady. Of course, now you can just say police officer. So I wanted to be a police officer. But when we went to careers evening at school, the police people, they said, no, you're too young. You have to be 18 and a half. I said, oh, gosh, what am I going to do for 2 years? So I was stuck then. I don't know. Obviously, we didn't have the internet back then, so I couldn't really research how old you had to be to join the police force, but obviously it wasn't 16. Anyway, so I was just wandering around this careers evening at school with my mum, and there was the West Anglian training, which was the YTS lot. And I just thought, well, I'm going to have to do something for 2 years before I can be a copper. So I went over there and I just said, what's on offer? And I wasn't interested in any of the stuff that they had on offer, of course. And I said, they said, what do you like? And I said, I like the radio. Can you get me into the radio? And they were like, we've got, actually didn't have any answers for me at that point because I kind of got him on the hop. But he came back to me within a week and he said, we've been in touch with Chiltern Radio. And I was like, no, you have not. And that was the station I absolutely loved. He said, yes, we've been in touch with them and they're up for interviewing you with a view to you having joining them as a YTS trainee for 2 years. And I was like, oh my gosh, that was, I was in love with everyone from the cleaner to the boss to the receptionist. And, my true loves at that time were Tony West. He was my absolute radio idol. Tony West, who was on Chiltern, and Paul McKenna used to be the breakfast show presenter at Chiltern, Martin Collins, and just loads of great broadcasters. Some of them are still going now. But yes, I was absolutely in love with that. So I did I had the interview, and it was actually to join the newsroom at Chiltern Radio. So I just sort of did the general dog's body cleaning cartridges, shove your hand in the magnetic field and wipe those, reclaiming tape, just carting. It was all 8-track then and reel to reel. There wasn't anything else. There was nothing else. Everything was on vinyl, the A-list, B-list, that was all 7-inch vinyl. So I'd sort that out and put stickers on. And I was just the general dog's body, but I absolutely loved every minute of it.
Did you dream of being a presenter, or did you just want to be part of a radio station?
At that time, I did just want to generally be around the people that I worshipped, and the radio bug didn't really happen until, while I'd been there for a while, and then I got behind the mic and just started having a little play around. And then some of the other DJs took me under their wing and they used to give me a hand and show me what to do. And I used to just play it to being DJ after I'd finished my little YTS shift. Once I'd finished washing up the cups of that were on the day, once you've done all the housework and everything, then when they've all gone, then I could get into the studio when it was finished and for the day and it was free. I used to just go in there and make demos and obviously they'd all be on cassette, wouldn't they, back in those days? So that's how I got the bug. I never really thought I could ever do it, but it seems 35 years later that I could do it. But yeah, it was not my intention. My intention was to finish my YTS training when I was 18 and go and be a police officer.
Do you know,
happen.
It's that was such a lovely story, and you're the first guest we've had on Crunch and Roll who started via a YTS, because normally it's hospital radio or it's student radio, and you've done it completely different, which is really interesting. It's strange that the one burning question I have is, whilst you're doing that washing up, did you ever wash up a Sports Direct mug? Because every radio station has always got a massive Sports Direct mug, hasn't it?
100%. They were always massive, and whoever had it was an absolute bell end usually. Oh, they've got the big cup. Oh, great, whatever. You're a knob. Yes, that is hilarious. The Sports Direct. I mean, they're classics, aren't they? But yeah, they definitely had those, and the Chiltern Radio mugs. Oh, I wish I could have one of those now.
All right, so let's move on to 1991. And you started shows on CRMK.
CRMK, Community Radio, Milton Keynes. It's still going. That was at the back of Horizon Radio, which I think had been created by then. That was one of the new additions to the Chiltern Radio Hot FM family, because Chiltern Radio was Chiltern 96.9, 97.6, which is like, the one that could be heard in London. So everyone wanted to be on there because they wanted to be on Capital. And some of our jocks went to Capital, like Paul McKenna and, Martin Collins, people like that. And there was Northants 96.6. And then, as I say, Horizon joined in, and they'd also taken over 7 Sound in Gloucester. So it was a very strange network of 5 stations. Anywho, so yes, CRMK, I kind of begged my way into there. And the program director said, I'd never been on air. I'd just done demo tapes in the studio. I'd never been on live radio ever. But he gave me a chance. He put me on with another girl, a lovely girl called Kim Harper, and she took me under her wing as well. And we did a little show. And then eventually, after about 3 shows, he said, yeah, you need to be on your own. So we're going to separate you and Kim, and you can have your own show. And he gave me a Tuesday night show, Tuesday Evening Affair, it was called. And I did that for a while. It was good practice. I was nervous as hell. Never really happy around anyone. I'm glad. I mean, Kim was lovely, but I didn't really like doing co-header shows. Very shy, and yeah, very scared of it all, but loved it at the same time. So yeah, that's where I started.
And then in 1992, you then go to overnights, which we've all done.
Everyone's done it.
I mean, there are still, when I did overnights to start my career at Viking, we did Fox's Kebab Shop of the night, and there are still certificates 23 years on around some takeaways in Hull. And the whole premise of the idea was just to blag free food. I mean, that was one of the joys of overnight. It's a strange time to be on the wireless, isn't it, Emma?
It's horrible, and you just can't sleep when you get back. So yeah, you just try different things. You'd be exhausted while you're on air at times, not all the time, because you did get into a routine. I used to, when I think I was on those night shifts, I think I was on 1 till 6 or 2 till 7, horrible shifts. People moan about 2-hour slots. I'm like, hang on a minute, I've done a 6-hour in a go. But generally it was a 5-hour slot. So you'd finish work. Those were the weekend slots, really. But yeah, if you were on in the week, you'd finish at 6 for breakfast. And then you're like, well, what am I going to do now? Then you're buzzing. So I used to just go to the gym after, and that didn't really help either. But yeah, it was a terrible time, actually. But good in a way, because if you can form relationships with listeners, that makes it easier. Because I think it's all about the listener. And if you've got nothing coming back at you, you are literally in a padded room talking to yourself, which can be a bit, and you're the only one in the building, which can be a bit lonely.
So I should have pointed out that this is now, you're doing overnights on the Chiltern Network.
I was on the Chiltern Network, so it was quite a big deal. It wasn't just some little thing. It was quite a big, back in those days, 1990, what was it,
92, yeah.
There weren't that many radio stations around. So yeah, that was a big thing for me. So yeah, there I was, 19, 20 years old, on this radio station I grew up with, and another 4, and one over the other side of the country. So yeah, I think I did all right, actually. I think I was probably quite shit at the time, but I did all right to get to that point.
We were all shit to start, Emma. Don't worry about that.
Of course.
And was this your first paid gig? And if so, how much? Can you remember how much your show fee was?
I actually didn't get any money for that.
Did you know?
I specifically remember Clive Dickens was the Well, he was actually not the PD, I don't think. He was the head of music, but for some reason he must have been. Paul Robinson was my first PD. Scary as hell. Bit like Richard Park, but his name's Paul Robinson, still in radio consultants now. Scary guy, and he bulk erased all of my carts with my jingles on, because he said that you're using them as crutches. Don't, and I was gutted. There's this young 18-year-old, 19-year-old girl comes. I had a little cart rack on my studio. It wasn't even the studio. It was on my little newsroom desk. Little cart rack of about 8 little carts, and it was like Emma Scott, Red Hot. No, it wasn't even Red Hot Emma Scott by then, but it was just these little things that we'd made. And he came in and he just bulked them, and I was absolutely gutted. This is the guy I'm scared the hell out of, And anyway, so Paul Robinson, I think he'd gone then he went to Radio 1, I think, and was a boss there. Anyway, then Clive Dickens, who was a friend of mine, he was the one that offered me the night shift. And I said, oh, great. How much will I be getting? He said, nothing. There is no money. Not even petrol money for my car to drive from St. Neots to Milton Keynes. So no, 0 pence. I'm afraid to say. Bad form.
So your first professional gig, you're running at a loss here, Emma.
I'm running at a terrible loss, but I did 2 years on YTS, and I got £27.50 for the first year and £29.50 for the second, on like a 70-hour working week. I mean, I think there's a theme going on. I don't think I really was in it for the money.
And at that time, is it true that Radio 1, they approached you?
Yeah, Radio 1 came and knocking. They came and knocking for the wench. They wanted a bit of the wench. In fact, I wasn't even the wench at that point. I was just Red Hot Emma Scott. Hilarious, whatever. So yeah, the guy called Simon, I want to say Simon Willis. It was a long time ago. Lovely Simon. He was really nice. And he approached me twice within a couple of years of each other. Once was when I was at Chiltern Radio doing the evening show. I think they'd caught wind of me. They asked me to go to Manchester to do a live demo there. And I am not good at nerves. I do, I do struggle with nerves, and I do struggle with other people looking at me and things like that. So I could never do a co-head a show. So to be put in a studio in a very strange place, BBC Manchester, never been there before. And I've got Mark and Lard opposite me. I'm
my heroes.
I know, same for me.
Yeah.
I absolutely love those guys. Yeah. And they're there, and I'm like, Christ, what the hell? Anyway, so I didn't do very well at that. I got overwhelmed. And then a couple of years later, they came to me again, or I might have actually approached them at that point and said, I cocked up before, can I have another go? And they said, okay, come. And it was still Simon. And Simon said, come down to London. So I went down to London, and I had Simon Mayo opposite me during that one. And I knew he was listening because you can tell when they're listening on pre-fade, and I had Zoe Bull's producer, Ginge. I think they called him Ginger on air at that time.
Ginge, I work with him now, Mark.
Yeah. Ginge was great guy. He was helping me doing my thing. And again, the nerves got the better of me. And I've got Simon Mayo opposite me as well. I couldn't do it. So yeah, two stabs at Radio 1, and she cocked up both of them. Wow. Never mind, eh?
At least they approached you. I mean, they approached you, Emma. I mean, that's pretty cool.
They called me the female Chris Moyles, and I don't know whether to be offended by that or not. I do know Chris. I remember he turned up. He took my show over when I left Chiltern to escape GWR. He took over my evening show, and he made a sweeper, little shit. And he opened his new show. He goes, and it was something like, I don't know, Chris Moyles on the Hot FM evening show. Who the hell is Emma Scott anyway? And I was like, you little rat bag. I just slogged my heart out on that show, you knob. But he did very well. I get a mention in his first autobiography, I think. And I was like, oh, Moyles, he mentioned me. How exciting.
It was a technical problem. You heard something on air you shouldn't have done.
Oh, yeah.
Well, look, so from Chiltern Network, you quickly moved to Galaxy in Bristol, which later that then become Vibe. Am I right in thinking? Is that the one that?
Well, it might have been Vibe, but it was Galaxy, and then it went to Galaxy 101, and then it was owned by Chrysalis, and that's when I left. But at that point, it was called something before I got there, and then they changed it to Galaxy, which was Chiltern Radio run. So it was still the Chiltern Network, and they just added it on, and it was like the dance station. Yeah. And they put me on a Saturday afternoon sports show. Crying out loud. I mean, I don't know what that was all about. And again, I don't think I got paid for that, because I got, they moved me from Chiltern Radio overnights. This is quite an interesting story. Well, it's not that interesting, but Clive Dickens said to me, he said, Em, he said, you're doing well on overnights. I want to get you up the schedule. We want to move you off overnights. We'll put you on a nice Saturday afternoon slot. I was like, great, brilliant. It's in Bristol. I'm like, okay, so only the other side of the country then. So I was like, yeah, okay, I'll do that. Also, the only other catch is you'll be a station assistant, which is basically the dog's body role that I've been doing anyway, previous 4 years, because I did 4.5 years at Chiltern in Bedford. And he said, and also, we don't really know the team down there in Bristol because we've just taken it over. We've just bought it out. So we want you to be the spy. Oh, and I was like, what? Oh, thanks, mate. This is a guy that's supposed to be. We just want you to keep an eye on things because we don't know whether they're sticking to their logs or anything. Are they playing the A list? Are they playing the B list? Or are they just playing whatever they want, kind of thing? And I thought it was. I was just like, yeah, whatever. Anyway, so I did this station assistant role, but it wasn't long before I got moved on to drive time because I think somebody moved and they threw me onto this drive time show, which was 3 till 7, and then they added another hour on, 2 p.m. to 7 p.m. And yeah, that was kind of that was how I launched into proper daytime and drive time radio, and I wasn't very good, and I wasn't very confident. I was like this young 19, 20-year-old girl, and I didn't know what I was doing. But it was lovely. I met Rick Scott there, funnily enough. He's got the same surname, so radio brother and sister. And he actually produces my radio show now, the one that I syndicate. So as we said earlier, it's a very small world. But yeah, Rick, I love Rick, and I've worked with him at a couple of radio stations. And yeah, so we're still together.
Please tell me you're now getting paid, Emma, because I'm starting to question your agent.
Then I think I was getting about, gosh, hang on. I'm trying to think what I used to earn. Like would I have earned £958 a month for 6 shows? Or that was later. I think I might have earned £8,000 a year when I was on Galaxy doing that station assistant role. And then I think I went, whatever it was, whenever I moved then back to Milton Keynes, to Horizon and the Hot FM again, to do evenings, I moved up the schedule. I was earning 958, which were, of course, we were like, capital 958. It's such an anorak thing to say. So yeah, I used to earn a 958 a month when I was on the Hot FM.
You mentioned it there, 94. So you go to the evening show on the Hot FM, and you've said to us that you had the time of your life there. You loved it.
I did. That was the stuff of dreams, because I was on, I think the evening show in a way is the best gig on the station. It was for me at that time. I was interviewing a lot of bands and also interviewing bands and artists that I admired from my youth, and people that were on my walls were actually in my studio and in front of me, like Adam Ant. And then you'd get all of the boy bands. I mean, 1995 was big on boy bands. You got Take That had just broken through. I did a very early gig with Take That at the Peterborough East of England showground, some sort of farmers show. I've got pictures of me standing with Mark Owen, and Robbie was doing something spinning on his head, and Gary Barlow left his sock behind. I remember that. And I sent Gary Barlow's sock back to him via his manager, Nigel Martin Smith, and said, "Hi, Gary, it was great to meet you at the East of England show. You left your sock, and it was a horrible sock. I even know why I bothered doing it, but I did. I returned Gary Barlow's sock." So, yeah, lots of boy bands. And I was a young girl, and I fancied a lot of them. So I was like, "Wait, who's coming in? God, he's a bit of all right." Bands like, Worlds Apart, Bad Boys Inc., and then you'd find out most of them were gay anyway. You're like, okay, I was probably barking up the wrong tree there. Let Loose were another band that came through, but then, talking about bands that I used to like, Hue and Cry and Duran Duran and Gary Kemp, Spandau Ballet, I was a big, like, my peak time when I was loving music, and, I've got all the pictures on my walls, Paul Young, people like that. That 10 years later, they're kind of not doing so well. So then they're doing the commercial radio rounds, on their other record deals that aren't so major, and they're not having hits. But I didn't care about any of that. I was like, oh my God, Paul Young is coming in. I cannot believe it. And I was just absolutely in my element. And it was a lovely team at Horizon, stroke the Hot FM, because we were based at Milton Keynes in Horizon studio. But we broadcast to, those 5 radio stations, and happy days.
You also ended up dating your hero from your childhood as well.
Well, I know, yeah. I mean, who would have thought that, right? Adam Ant. And when I've told that story a few times, and a few people said, "What? Which one's he then?" I'm thinking I was talking about Ant and Dec. I'm like, all right, the youth, Adam Ant, Adam and the Ants, massive band. Yeah, I worshipped him from the age of 9. And then when I met him, I was 23. He was a bit older, didn't bother me. It was Adam Ant. And during the interview, we got on really, really well. And he just said, "If you're in London, come and have a coffee." Gave me his telephone number, gave me his address. And we had a few coffees. Adam Ant is a lovely guy. And I remember I was thinking when I was just doing the housework earlier, I was thinking of a great time. Adam and I had gone out. We had a great time. We went to London Zoo. He loves London Zoo. He lives right near it. And we'd gone there, and that was lovely. But there was this other time we were out for dinner. And I said to him, "I'm going to go to the toilet." I said, "I might be a while." And obviously, he knew what I meant when I said I was going to be a little while in the toilet. And I got back to the table, and it was a tablecloth. It was like a paper tablecloth. They obviously replace it, and then they put another one in. And he'd written on it, "Emma done a big poo," and I had this picture of me, like done a cartoon of me next to it, and I was absolutely gutted. I was like, "Oh, you've so embarrassed me." So I ripped the tablecloth. I've still got it, actually. I've still got the actual Emma done a big poo thing written down. He's a great guy. He really looked after me. He was lovely, and I haven't spoken to him for a while, but yeah, cheeky little bugger. But great. I've seen him live loads of times since. Absolutely spot on still. So Adam and the Ants and Adam Ant in general. Amazing.
That is an amazing story, Emma. Amazing.
So yeah, that was good fun.
So from 1995, you go back to Bristol, and then you're on the regional Galaxy 101. You're doing the 11 till 3 show. I mean, was dance and R&B your thing? Because from what I'm sensing, I would say not.
No, not really. But as Galaxy progressed from the previous radio station, which was very music of black origin, bit Mobo basically. We had to play, like, every other song had to be from an artist of black origin. So it was a world that I didn't really understand any of it. But anyway, when we got back, as it kind of, morphed into Galaxy 101, which was the bigger regional station, which was broadcast into Bristol and Wales, I had to learn a load of Welsh sayings and phrases and stuff. Lovely, the joys. It became more pop. And, I had guests like Kim Wilde come in and Right Said Fred and bands like that. So it was less Mobo and more sort of pop, really. But yeah, 11 till 3, that was a good slot. I quite liked that. But yeah, that didn't end well because Chrysalis, and I think when I hear these podcasts, I think most people come into a radio station, brought in by a program director, and then the program director leaves.
Yeah.
Or you're quite happily moving along your life and enjoying your show, and you've just moved halfway across the country again. There's a lot of moving in this game. Then the radio station gets taken over. When I left the Hot FM, it wasn't because I wanted to, because as we've discussed, I was having the time of my life. That was when GWR took over the Chiltern Radio Network. And I couldn't be doing with that. And then Moyles took over my evening show. So that's where Moyles kind of launched, and then he got his Capital gig. But he took over my evening show on Chiltern. So I'd gone over to escape GWR and the liner cards. Yeah. And then we were fine at Galaxy for a while. And then Chrysalis came in, and they bought Galaxy off of Chiltern. And they fired me. They got rid of me, and then they brought their own. That's what they do. They kind of come in, and then they get rid of the old ones, even though I'd only been there 8 months. And they replaced me. So I was a bit heartbroken about that because I'd moved again over that side of the country, and I was a bit screwed then. But yeah, that was the first time I kind of lost my job. But it's okay because I got another gig. I did a couple of weeks in Plymouth just to fill in the time, and then I got a job offer at Metro, which was one of the big stations in the country at that time, and I hadn't got a job. So yes, they're offering me this gig, and yes, it's overnights and weekend overnights, but okay, I need the gig, I'm going. So that's how I ended up at Metro. But yeah, I wasn't overly happy being there.
Cunty.
We apologise, sir.
We just play records till 8, 9. When do we finish?
I'm not drunk. I've had a couple of drinks. I'm not drunk.
Oh, yeah.
Now, before we get onto Metro, you mentioned Right Said Fred. I mean, didn't they contribute to you not being in favour with Chrysalis for some reason?
Yes, funnily enough. They were slagging off the music while I was doing a live interview with them. They were saying, I think there was some sort of cover version or some sample that was being used in one of the A-list songs, and they just slagged it off completely. And I was sort of mouthing at them, shut up, And I knew that that's when Chrysalis had arrived to have a station tour to see whether they wanted to buy it. And my PD, I can't even remember who it was. He just really brought me up on that and said, Right Said Fred, what was all that about? I was like, but I told them afterwards, I said, you helped me get the boot. I said, and then later on, I just said, it's all right. It was a good move. I didn't like it there anyway. I didn't. And they were fine. But yeah, they were a little bit mouthy, and it was a little bit negative. So yeah, a little bit naughty. Yeah, they were a bit naughty. So whatever. But yes,
Emma
did help me get the boot.
Emma Scott got booted because a Right Said Fred is such a good headline. Brilliant. Brilliant.
Yeah, absolute knob ends.
All right,
I wasn't happy at the time.
Let's move on to Newcastle. So I've never been to Newcastle, and but I know what it's like in Newcastle, and I don't know why this is back in '96, but I'm starting to worry for you, Emma. I mean, a young girl from Cambridgeshire moving to Newcastle. How was that?
It was horrific. I didn't understand what was going on. I mean, the night scene, it's a big night scene, and the girls go out not wearing very many clothes. I remember that. A lot of Newcastle football team were quite massive at that time. So that was all the rage. I didn't know anything about football. Metro FM again was massive, and I'm just this little ex-YTS girl from Chiltern Radio. So it was all very daunting and full of Geordies. So I had to learn how to speak Geordie way I pet. I'm ganning doing the tune. Yeah, it was an interesting time. I learned a lot.
You mentioned to me before that it was a good team. It was just more of the experience that you didn't like.
I didn't like being on my own. No, I was 4.5 hours from home. I didn't have any friends. I didn't know anybody. I didn't know the boss. I didn't know anybody. And being on the overnight shift, you don't see anyone. You'll see the breakfast presenter come in at 6 a.m. You hot seat out of there, and you've gone. There's no time for chit chat. And then I just go home. I was completely on my own. I didn't have anything to do all day. So yeah, it wasn't great. And they tried to involve me as much as they could. Fair play to them. They're good guys. Lewis Clark was one of my friends up there. And then I later worked with him at Heart, like 2010, 11, 12, something like that. So they tried to get me out, but it was difficult because I was on Friday and Saturday evening, 7 till 10, and then 3 night shifts in the week. So sociable, no, not going to happen. But yeah, so in the end, I used to finish one of my overnight shifts, and I actually went round to Lewis's house and had a breakfast with him. And he said, "Oh, I don't know." He was. I think he was a program director at that time. Was he assistant? I can't remember. Giles took me, and then Giles buggered off. And then I had Sean Marley. He was a good PD. I liked him, very sweet. And then Lewis was up there, and Alan Robson, people like that. But yeah, and eventually I kind of made more friends at Metro. But yeah, it was a massive station, and it was probably a bit too much for me, really. But I used to have a good time eventually. Now,
as much as your story of unhappiness, just living away from home in Newcastle for Metro, is it true that, I don't think I've ever mentioned this guy's name for some time, so Jimmy Savile actually sat with you in the studio at Metro as well?
Well, I think he tried to get me to sit on his lap, but it was, yeah, he used to do a show for Great North Radio, which I think was the AM brand of the FM. I don't know, it was on the other side where the grown-ups used to play. So he used to do Savile's Travels show, and as a result, he used to come in every now and again to record. And I was doing it would have been a Saturday or a Sunday evening show. I was just on my own. Don't expect anyone to be in the building. And then really Jimmy Savile walks in with his cigar on, right? I'm sorry, mate, but this is a studio. Nobody smokes in the studio. Not even allowed food in here, and you've got a bloody cigar on. Anyway, comes in with the producer of the show, Michael, lovely guy. He just wanted Jimmy to come in and say hello. And at that time, of course, we don't know any different. We're just he's a colleague. He's a legend, used to watch him on TV. So he came in, and it annoyed me that he had this cigar on, because that is my studio space. And his ash went on the desk. But it was weird. It was just very, I didn't get good vibes from him. It definitely wasn't one of my highlights, I've got to say. And it was a very low time anyway. So yeah, that dragged it down even further.
Well, you then move on in 97. You get offered the evening show on what I think is one of the best stations in the country. Hallam FM in Sheffield. I'm from Hull originally, so we shouldn't naturally like other Yorkshire towns, but I love Sheffield. I think it's just an incredible place. It's got just an amazing nightlife, amazing eateries. It's just a brilliant place. And you get offered the evening show on Hallam FM, and you must have bit their arm off.
I did. I snapped it off. I bit it, and I said, "I'm coming. Thanks very much." But Hallam wouldn't let me go. So I'm still doing Metro. I'd signed a second year. I'm only halfway through. Yeah, or I was only just got into that year. And so Metro said, "No, we like what you do. We like your night shifts, and we like your weekend evening shifts." I had good figures, and I was, quite enjoying myself by that point. But so as a result, and they were owned by the same company, they were EMAP. So they just said, "Well, look, you can go to Hallam and do evenings there, but you have to come back and do your weekend shows here." So I had to do Monday to Friday at Hallam, and then travel from Sheffield back to Newcastle, and and do. I think they must have had me on Saturday and Sunday evening, 7 till 10, and I had to do that until they could find a replacement. So yeah, it was a bit of a bugger, but I loved it at Hallam FM. And Kirsty, of course, was there. She's amazing, and Daryl Denham and the team there. You know, Brett was there, Brett Harley. Trying to think who else there was. And Rebecca Franklin, she's a great broadcaster. She did lates after me. Yeah, it was a really good team. The news team were great. It was just, and the program director, I mean, Tony McKenzie took me on. Then he left. And then we had Anthony Gay. A few people have mentioned his name, as I recall. And me and Anthony got on all right until I called him a CUNT. That didn't go down very well. But I was ill.
But you're such an innocent person, Emma. How did that come about?
I was vile. I had postnatal depression, but I didn't even know about it because I'd gone back to work straight away after having my first daughter. And I didn't know I was going to talk about this. But yeah, so I'd got being self-employed and a lady. I'd just got married and luckily got pregnant. And then everything kind of changed, because being self-employed, they don't want you to take time off. You've got to do that gig, you've got to turn up and do your 6 shows a week. None of this, you can have 6 months off or a year off. I managed to negotiate 8 weeks off, I think. And I went back to work after 7. But turns out, just to get to the reason why I was horrible to Anthony Gay, and I have apologized since, because I do not go around calling people that. I went back to work too soon and my hormones were all over the place, and Anthony sort of pulled me aside and said, your attitude's not very, very good. People are talking. I went, who are these fucking people talking? Where are they? Bring them up here. It was like, get out of my pub. It was like something out of EastEnders. I was absolutely vile. But I'm very sorry to Anthony. I have apologized since. But he did say afterwards, he says, we can't have you here now. So fair enough. I'll come and clear out my locker tomorrow. So it was horrendous. And then I went to the doctors and the doctor said to me, he said, Emma, oh, you're on this, I think they called it the mini pill. It was the one where if you were breastfeeding, you could have it if you were breastfeeding and you didn't want to get up the duff again. But he said, oh, you're on that. You must be feeling like you're going mad. I said, yeah, I've just called my boss a CUNT and lost my job. He went, yeah, you don't want to be on that mini pill. You've been on there too long. You should have been moved on to this other one by then. I was like, cheers, mate. Cheers, mate, because you just lost me the best gig of my life. And it was an amazing 3.5 years at Hallam. I loved it. I didn't get to see much of the Sheffield sort of nightlife or anything because I was on evenings. And you don't tend to get out much in the evening when you're on air. But then they moved me up to 10 till 2. So, yeah, I was a bit more. But, yeah, it was what it was. I was a very naughty girl. I had a bad attitude because of my hormones raging.
What I like is when before we do an episode of Crunch and Roll, we always speak to our guests and we just say, just send us over some notes. And the notes that you sent to us was that you told your boss to shove his job up his arse. Now, yeah, I wasn't quite true, was it? That did come after I'd called him a CUNT. And the MD, who I was very rude about, Sean, his name was Sean Gregory, and also a very nice guy. He didn't deserve to be called what he got called. But yeah, I said, I'm not interested in a job. You can fucking shove it or whatever. I don't know. It was horrible. It was a horrible time in my life. Can I just say, do you know, it was, I don't know, about a year ago, I spoke to, I won't name her, but she co-hosts a show on a big station in the Midlands. I mean, you probably work it out now because there's that fewer people presenting. But I remember having a conversation with her. So she'd given birth to her daughter. And she rang me and she was just talking about the pressure of returning back. A, because we were self-employed, so there's a pressure of earning cash. But also, I mean, it's not just for ladies, it's for us as well. You know, blokes, that when you have time off, you shit yourself that someone's going to come along and do a better job than you. That's the I would say that's number one, isn't it?
Yeah, it was awful, actually, having to negotiate these weeks, with Anthony, the program director. He said, well, we can give you 8 weeks. That's it. Unpaid, obviously. Or I think 4 weeks were my holiday. And did we get paid holiday? I don't really remember getting any paid holiday. But I was allowed off. No, it was unpaid holiday, but you're allowed off for 4 weeks. So I'd had this 4-week allowance. I'd saved up my holiday. And then I took this extra 4 weeks, turned out to be 3 because I went back after 7. And yeah, but you're constantly thinking, I need to get back, or I'm going to lose this job. And then after 6 months, I managed to lose it myself anyway, because being mental, whatever. So yeah. And then the second baby, actually, because Indiana is now 22 and then Diaz is 18. But that I went back to work. That was Power FM at the time. I went after 5 weeks. So yeah, you do. I get very jealous when people have a year off maternity and they get money for it. But as it was, I didn't have a husband that actually worked. So had that been a different scenario, maybe I would have had a bit more time off work.
Bless you. Now I'm going to.
I was still doing my breast pumping while I was on air.
Oh,
we had to get a curtain. We had to get a curtain at Hallam because I had to pump my breasts very regularly. Otherwise, they seize up. If you don't use it, you're going to lose it. So we had to get a curtain put in at Hallam because I'd gone back that early. And Indiana was still breastfeeding. So there's me with my boobs hanging out. And, people weren't allowed to walk past because it's all glass, glass at the front, glass at the side, glass at the back. And I've got my tit out trying to squeeze my thing out. It's horrific. I didn't do that for Diaz because I was a lot closer to home and I could just go home and breastfeed. But yeah, it's like a few months before I was puking in the bin because of my morning sickness. And then a few months later, got my boobs out and I'm squeezing my milk. It's showbiz, baby. It's showbiz. That's what it is. Oh, yeah.
I want to fast forward now.
Yeah, please do, because we're going to run out of time and I haven't even told you any good stories yet.
You've told some... Emma, you've been brilliant, genuinely. I mean that. I've really enjoyed this. But you moved to a station in 2002, which I always dreamt of being on it. You went to Power FM. Power FM. I thought it was amazing. Yeah.
You know what else is amazing? Their frequency, 103.2, and I earned 103.2 pence for my show. That was a good earning show as well. 103 pounds 20 pence, and I'd gone from Juice in Brighton, and I was earning £68 a show, as I recall. So to go up to £103, like, wow. And also it was the same frequency, like 958. It was like, whoa. Anyway, yeah, I love Power FM. That was amazing. And I met the lovely Claire Anderson, who you know, and she kind of made me come on here with you. She made me. No, lovely Claire, lovely team at Power FM. Absolutely great. Really professional. 1 till 4 slot. Amazing. Yeah. So, yeah, I got to do my incoming show as well, which was a 3-hour free choice show. You don't get that anymore, do you? So incoming was great. Indie and rock and, beautiful. Loved it down there. Lovely part of the world.
Didn't you have your worst Snoop session of your life at Power FM?
Oh, Christ. It was horrendous. I mean, who likes Snoop sessions anyway? Does anybody like a Snoop, right? You're being completely slagged off for something you can't do anything about because it's happened, right? All right, I did it. I said instead of not saying Oh, I spoke for 17 seconds instead of 15. I can't do anything about it, mate. It's happened. But this one, the worst Snoop of my entire life. I mean, they're all horrible. All of them are horrible, and I've done hundreds. It was terrible. And it was just a normal weekly Snoop. I'd gone into the little office, the boardroom, it would have been. Boardroom, and program director's opposite me with his laptop. I'm just sitting there with a notepad making notes if he actually did come out with something that I was going to learn from, which never really happened. He used to choose an hour of a show and used to play every single link that I did. And the first couple were okay, blah, blah, blah. And then this third link or whatever, he listened to it. And then he placed his laptop on the desk because he was walking around with his laptop as well, just pacing up and down. I was like, what are you doing? Just sit down, man. Anyway, so he puts his laptop down he threw something on the desk, his pen or something. He just threw it at me. I was like, whoa. And he went, that is not why I pay you. And I was like, what? And he said, what was that? And I'm actually paying you for doing things like that. And I was like, all right, mate. And I I was in shock because, first of all, I don't know whether he threw an A4 pad at me or he threw something at me, and he'd slagged me off, and he'd completely destroyed my confidence and told me I was shit, basically, and that I shouldn't be earning any money. And then I cried, obviously. And then he must have felt awful. Obviously, I wouldn't have been able to say much. I'd have just said, he would have offered a cup of tea. Should I go and get you a cup of tea? Yes, give me a cup of tea. So I'm sobbing my heart out, thinking, well, there's no point. I can do another radio show. That's it. I'm doomed. That's it. I can't do anything else. I'm useless. He's told me I'm useless. I don't earn any money. I'm going to go back to 0 pence, blah, blah, blah. All of this. And I was in that room for hours. I would not leave that room. I couldn't stop crying. He'd really hit a raw nerve there. And he'd brought a cup of tea in, and it didn't help. And in the end, he said, is there anything I can do? What can I do to make this better? And I said, go and get my coat, go and get my bag, bring it in here, and just don't look at me, because I'd been crying for hours. So he had to go to my desk. When I wasn't expecting to be in this room for hours. But he went and got my stuff, and then I put my coat on and got my bag, and I just head down. I got quite a long fringe anyway, so I could hide my face, and off I shot out the reception and avoided eye contact. And any Snoop session after that with him or any other program director, I always had my coat and always had my bag just in case it kicked off. Because if it went wrong, I'm going to get everything and I'm off. See ya, but I'm not going to put up with that. But yeah, I haven't really had a worse Snoop session, and that just really hit a raw nerve, because it wasn't even that bad a link, it was just an average link. You can't come up with great links all the time, can you? Crying out loud.
No, and they could be. My favourite person to do Snoop sessions was Mark Story. I don't know if your paths ever crossed, but he would have little power naps. So you'd be listening to part of the show, and you'd look over at Mark Story, who at the time was the oracle of radio at EMAP, and he'd be asleep. He'd be like, shit, was it that bad? He'd wake up and he'd be like, I listen. He just could rattle off every fine detail of the link. It was incredible.
Unbelievable. I had a thing with Mark's Story, and I can't remember. We fell out. I can't remember what it was about. He was a consultant at Kerrang, and he'd come in to do something, and there was another episode where I think I was chewing on a pen, and he told me off. And I was thinking, don't tell me off for chewing a pen. I don't even know you. You don't even know me. But yeah, he took umbrage that I had a pen in my mouth, as I recall. Very strange situation. Anyway, whatever. Snoops, hate them. Yeah. Don't ever want to deal with them again.
Well, look, you've mentioned Kerrang. So you were still doing your gigs at Power FM, but then in 2004, you do some weekend shows on Kerrang. I mean, let's talk Kerrang, because I know I've spoken to Jim Coulson in the previous series. I spoke to Dan Morfitt, who've both been on Kerrang. And I'll say again to you, what an incredible station.
It was mind-blowing to be there. It was completely different to anything else that I had ever witnessed. And the creativity and the teamwork and just the atmosphere, everything was great. Lovely open plan office. The studios are great. It was a really brilliant building. And I know that the other guys have talked about the stage that used to just get wheeled out, and it was all the glass fronted, very showbiz, the reception, everything was showbiz about it. Everyone was just loving being there. That it was a really young creative team, and production was absolutely mint. The team was mint. Program director was great, Andrew Jeffries. Then he got me up and then left. And then I had Adam Ootman, and Adam was great. I really love Adam. And yeah, Loz, the head of music, he's still there now. Johnny Doom, he's still my mate, so just an amazing team, just creativity, the amount of bands that were coming in, I'd be doing 5 interviews a day, and it'd be like, whoa, all right, you're going to wheel in Gavin Rosdale from Bush. Okay. Oh, right. Manic Street Preachers are in. Oh, The Enemy are just around the corner. Right. Oh, Foo Fighters. Oh, I've got to do Corey Taylor from Slipknot. Right. How many more are you going to give me? It was just one after another, and it was constant. And it was great. The gigs were great. We used to host all of these live music nights. And the listeners, amazing listeners as well. You go to a Kerrang night, and there'd be lined up load of cranberry and vodka for me, because they absolutely thought I was great. I don't know. They picketed when I got the boot. They were outside picketing, saying "Save our Emma." It was wonderful. But yeah, a glorious time.
So you were driving from Power FM, and then you were driving to Birmingham initially before you went full time at Kerrang. So you're doing 6 shows at Power, and then you were driving to. I mean, you've done some miles, Emma.
I know. Yeah. Well, that's actually my real name. My real name is Emma Miles. And I do put a lot of miles in. And I think if you want something, you got to go for it. And it doesn't matter if you don't get paid or you have to put a lot of miles in. If you want it and you really want it, then you'll go and get it. But yeah, I'd only just given birth to my second daughter at that time. And Andrew Jeffries wanted me at Kerrang, but I was pregnant. And then he said, look, just have the baby. I'm going to do the launch. We're going to have the launch team, and the launch team very rarely stays, which is a fair point. He said, just keep in touch, because by this time I was back on Power. I was still doing Power. Keep in touch, and once you've had the baby, then we'll talk more. And so I gave birth, and then, within minutes, I was like, right, Andrew, can I come and have a chat? So I drove up from the South Coast up to Birmingham and had my interview with Andrew Jeffries, and he gave me the gig. But he said, we've only got Sunday mornings. Well, no, it was 12 till 3. So yeah, Sunday lunchtime. So I would leave my house in, where did I used to live? Warsash. 7, I think I'd leave 7 a.m., get to Birmingham for 10 a.m., park up. It was terrible parking in Birmingham. That's one of the worst things about Kerrang. And then I'd do a couple of hours show prep. I'd be on air at Kerrang between 12 and 3. I'd drive back home. I'd get back home for 7 p.m. I'd eat something. Then I'd go back to work to Power FM because I was on air at 10 p.m. till 1 a.m. So it was like it was a horrible, horrible long day. And I did it for a year. And I had this tiny baby and a 4-year-old as well. So, but I wanted it. And so I went and got it. And then while I was doing my Sunday show, Adam said, the drive time show's coming up. Do you want it? And I snapped his arm off as well. So that's quite a few arm snaps that's gone on. I didn't want to leave Power, but I knew to progress my career, I had to go to Kerrang, and I had a glorious time there. So
whilst you're at Kerrang, obviously owned by EMAP, and I've asked all fellow EMAPians, I'm going to use that new term, it's quite clever.
Good.
Tell me about the EMAP Awards, your experience of the EMAP Awards.
Oh, gosh. Well, I think I only went to 2. They were just absolute. Everyone just got mortal, didn't they?
It's just ridiculous. Yeah, it was.
It was just mortal city. I've got pictures of us all over the floor, cartwheels, handstands, puking, people getting off with people that you shouldn't be getting off with, fallouts, arguments, crying. I was up for an award and didn't win, so I was crying. Stage invasions. The EMAP Awards were absolutely amazing. So, bring them on if they were ever to redo an award ceremony. That would be pretty good. But yeah, I remember that.
I always remember the Kerrang lot were just an absolute mess. I mean, you lot just stood out like a sore thumb. We were all, any other station, be it Radio City or, I don't know, TF.
Metro.
Yeah, any of those. All of them. We were all just in shirt and jeans, not the Kerrang lot, no. Like Tim Shaw would go up on stage with a dildo in his hand. It was, every time the name Kerrang was mentioned, the whole venue would just erupt. It was, I think everyone used to look across and go, oh, I wish we were part of the Kerrang family.
I know. It was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. So, happy days. But everything good comes to an end, doesn't it?
It does.
We all got the boot.
We did.
Poor Gordon Davison got that job, didn't he? And I know he's been mentioned a few times. Great PD, really nice human being. But I did all right out of that deal because I'd just signed for my my next year. And I think Gordon actually orchestrated that. I think he knew what was happening. So he was keen to sign me up for another year because then when they got rid of pretty much all of the team in 2009, he said, I bet you're glad now, Emma, that I got you to sign that contract because you've got 8 months' pay and you don't have to do anything for it. And I was like, yes, yeah. And then, I've got to find another job. But it was okay because then I was on a retainer for Heart for a year or something. I used to get paid for sitting around doing nothing, just waiting for shifts to come in. Amazing.
How do you go from presenting on Kerrang to presenting on Heart? Because yin and yang,
I know, babe. I know. It was a difficult one for me, but they wanted me, and while I was at Kerrang, they kept saying, "Send me a demo, in the Heart format," and it was chalk and cheese, yin and yang. It was very difficult, but at the end of the day, I'm a broadcaster, and I can turn my hand to, if I had to do a country show, I'll do a country show. If I had to do a jazz show, I would do it. I'm all right at broadcasting. I'm in my element with guitar music and rock music, but I can do pop as well. And also I need to feed mouths and pay mortgages. So as I already said, I had a husband that was the stay-at-home dad. So if I didn't work, nobody ate. So yeah, I needed another gig. The guys at Heart in Birmingham were keen, and they were nice guys. So I did some swing work there. Did a couple of weeks of breakfast pretty much straight away after leaving Kerrang. It was a shock to the system. It was really hard. I didn't like it at all. I did it because I had mouths to feed. It was hard work. It was all very prepared the day before. We're going to do that in this hour. We're going to talk about that. We're going to do this as a caller subject. We're going to do that. And I didn't like that. And I managed to deal with it for about 4 years. And then I said, no, I can't do it. This is the most soul destroying radio I have ever done in my entire life. And to listen to me, you would not think that I was thinking that my soul was being destroyed, because as I say, I'm a decent broadcaster and I can put a smile on and I can deal with it. But no, it was killing me. Every single day killed me a little bit more. But I love the guys at Heart. I think what they do is it's a great product. It's a great product. You know what you're going to get. The broadcasters on there, the presenters on there are of a decent standard, because you've got to be that tight. I just want to be loose, I want to sling the microphone open and just say, how's it going? What's happening? Just chat. But you're not allowed to do that there. So yeah, it was very weird going from Kerrang to Heart, but I had mouths to feed. And somebody told me once, and it might have been Gordon Davidson from Kerrang, he said, being cool, don't put food on the table or something. I can't remember what it was, but they're right. You can sit there and say, well, I've got to be cool, or you can pay your bills. And at the end of the day, this is a job and we need to pay our bills as well.
Absolutely.
So that's how that happened. And Rachel New had already gone over from Kerrang to Heart, and she was doing really, really well. So I thought, well, if Rachel can do it from working with Ugly Phil, and dealing with everything Ugly Phil could throw at her, then okay, I've got a chance to survive on Heart as well. But yeah, I managed 3 years, 3 years full time on drive time in Devon, and I couldn't do any more. I was done.
It's funny because you were offered Heart Cambridge or Heart Devon, and you took Devon. And I would love to live in Devon, by the way. But why did you not return home?
I know. I just wasn't ready to return home. I wanted to experience that Devon and Cornwall life that everybody dreams of, and I wouldn't do it again. And I should have taken Cambridge. But I'd already left St Neots, 20 years before, so it's kind of irrelevant, really, that they'd offered me Cambridge. They did try and get me to do Heart Cambridge years after, but at that point I was burned out from Heart and burned out from radio. I did 25 years solid, and it was hard. So yeah, I chose Devon because I wanted the beaches and the sea, and as it was, Exeter's nowhere near the ruddy beach. On the industrial estate. All right, where's the beach? An hour. Oh, okay.
It would have been closer if you were in Cambridge to get to Felix, though, I think, wouldn't
would
it?
Would have been. Absolutely. I really shit out there. But it was all right. It was all right.
Well, look,
to do it.
Let's just finish on Plug-in Baby. So tell me about Plug-in Baby, because this is your baby.
It is I do see it as my baby. Plug-in Baby is the company I created when I decided to leave radio in 2013. I thought, well, I'm screwed because this is all I know. What am I going to do? It's not as if you can go to the back of your newspaper and see a job for a drive time presenter on offer or anything. I had no qualifications to do anything except radio, so I was not going to just walk into an normal office job or anything. So I thought, well, what can I do? What can I do? And I'd already been running a record label, not a radio station. God, that would be horrific. I'd already been running this record label, and so I was doing a bit of radio plugging for it. So I thought, all right, well, let me just do that just until I decide what to do. And here we are 10 years later, still doing that, doing quite well at it. Plug-in Baby's been going for a while. We have great results. It's good. And then decided to set up the Plug-in Baby radio show. And I do that every week. Started that in September. I mean, I should have started it a long time, but it took me a while to go back on air, to be fair. I think that I was fairly destroyed after what I had to deal with in the last couple of years on air. And I really wasn't interested in radio at all. And it was the guys at Primordial Radio, that great radio station, by the way, if you like rock and metal. They actually pulled me out of my radio retirement and in 2020 during COVID. And I'm glad they did, because I wouldn't have got behind a mic again, ever. And unless I had that sort of family feel. But yeah, so that got me back into radio. And as I say, I'm doing radio plugging for Plug-in Baby. So I work with musicians, get their music played on the radio, which isn't easy with playlists, but we manage, we get through. And yeah, the Plug-in Baby radio show is great. It's 2 hours of my clients, but mostly other songs that that I like. Other bands that get in touch and want airplay. So I try and help as many people as I can. It's very much like the old Raw show, the incoming show I used to do on Hallam. I used to do one called XS. It's very much like those three shows I used to absolutely love. This people dread their sixth show. They don't like doing their sixth show. They want to lie in. They can't be asked with all this. I was doing 7 shows just because, and for free. I didn't used to get paid for one of them. I don't think I got paid for Raw at some point, because they I don't know what they wanted to get rid of it, and I said no, I'll do it for free. So so I was doing 7 shows a week then. But anyway, I love those 6 shows because they gave me free choice. They gave me the chance to play bands that weren't going to usually be on radio stations like Hallam or Power FM. Like Slipknot on Power FM. Really? That happened, right? Interviewing Foo Fighters and bands like that on Power FM back in 2003. That happened. And usually they wouldn't stand a chance of getting on a capital radio station, but they did, because I was there.
I just wondered, having chatted for the last hour, Emma, and going through, and genuinely you've been brilliant. So thank you so much for agreeing to do this.
Oh, thanks, Foxy. You're very nice. No, I like you.
You've made me laugh. But I just wondered.
What's the but?
Do you regret not becoming a police officer?
You know what? That is a very good question. And yes, in a way I do. I actually tried to be a firefighter about 2 years ago, because I still have that in me. That it's obviously a uniform thing. Police, I was put off being a police officer in the end. A friend of mine's quite high up in the police, and she said, no, Emma, it's not like it used to be in the late 80s when you wanted to join. She said, move on, go and do something else. And then the fire service kind of tickled my fancy, and I tried out to be an on-call firefighter. Turned out then my hormones will be the death of me, John. I'm not being funny. But I couldn't deal with I got through a year of training and exams and everything to get to this 10-week training program for the firefighters. And I was going through this menopausal thing, perimenopause it's called, 10 long years, 10, where your hormones are all over the place. Anyway, it made my anxiety terrible. And this 10-week training for the fire service, I got to week 3 and then I had to pull out. Thought I was having a breakdown. It was horrendous. Anyway, but yes, I would have liked to have been a police officer, and I definitely would have liked to have been a firefighter, but I couldn't make it through. So yeah, but I have had a career that is the stuff of dreams. So when if it flashes before me, I just have brilliant memories. And don't talk to me about Mick Hucknall because he's a knob. Worst celebrity interviewed, Mick Hucknall, closely followed by Seal. Anyway, no, it is the stuff of dreams. 25 years solid, another 10 years on now. This is my 35th year doing my own radio show from my kitchen, basically. I'm loving it. I love the freedom and no Snoop sessions and no more dodgy program directors and telling people where they can shove their job. So, yeah, sorry about that, Anthony.
I sense from your reaction there that you're not a Mick Hucknall fan, Emma.
Well, I mean, no. You mention his name, and to me, I just want to puke. And I used to be a Simply Red fan, and I interviewed him when I was at Metro. So, a dark time anyway. And then I had to go and interview him. I flew down from Newcastle to London, sat around for ages waiting for His Highness to have time to meet me and be interviewed by me. And I just found him to be so rude, so off-putting, just didn't want to be there. And during the interview, and I was really nervous because he's a worldwide star who I used to like, Simply Red at that time, 1996, when that Stars album was out. That was a big album. And I expected more of this man. And in the middle of the interview, and as I said, I struggle with nerves. I struggle with people, being close to people and co-hosting and all that. And it's me with this little Marantz recorder, whatever it was. And I was really scared, and I was interviewing him, and he said, "Are these questions really interesting to anyone? I don't think they're any." And he just really, I was like, "Oh my God!" I actually really tried hard with those questions. And he just said that my questions were shit. And I was like, well, I think I defended myself. I said, well, I think they're interesting. Suppose it's about your answer. I just want to know what your answer is. Underpants or boxers. It's a really it's a real high flying question. You know what I mean? I was living in the smash hits generation, mate. So, but anyway, there were other decent questions, but he just said, these questions are actually interesting to anyone. And I got out of that interview. And I cried again. I cry a lot. And then I flew back to Newcastle, and I got back to my house in Newcastle, and I found out that album, Stars album, and I smashed it to pieces. And I was like, Hucknall, you are dead to me, mate. Simply Red, simply fuck off. Oh, yeah.
Well, Emma Scott, thank you very much for being on Crunch and Roll.
Thanks for having me. I mean, I just love the name Crunch and Roll. I was good at crunch and rolling. I'm quite tight. I can hit a vocal.
I think it was Simon's idea, wasn't it?
I love it. That was what Crunch and Roll happened when I got to Hallam. Anthony Gay was like, just do a Crunch and Roll link there, Emma. A C&R. I'm like, yeah, I love a bit of C&R. I can't get enough of it. Such an anorak term. I love it. Thanks for having me. I've absolutely I loved it. Thank you. You've been listening to Crunch and Roll with me, Emma Scott. Subscribe on your favourite podcast app to get every new episode as soon as it drops. Crunch and Roll is a 969 media production presented by our lovely John Fox and produced by the quite nice Simon, Borshofsky? Oh, yeah. Don't talk about the Hoosiers.
Oh, I love the Hoosiers.
There's been too much talk of the Hoosiers.